So this video is for all the future business owners, all the people who want to run their own mobile businesses, anything where you feel like you have the skill sets to be able to pay your own bills. And my hope is that all of you can get there and that we can stop making a plate full of food as earners within that dealership or wherever we're working, and everyone eats off that plate to an extent where it's insulting. There's like maybe less than 10% of that labor dollar anymore afforded, maybe 10 to 15 afforded to the guy who earned it. If I was to go out for the village and kill 50 bucks and I got a leg, this is what I'm getting at. So, but skills pay bills. Here's the reason why a lot of you can't do it now. Well, let's be real. It's because you have to phone a friend. You have to research the answer. Researching the answer isn't phoning a friend. If you're researching the answer from the service literature, then what you're doing is you're solving the problem through a systematic approach to, first of all, understanding what that problem is, and then going about the service literature to diagnose the problem. The reason that I would say it is a addition to any time that would be spent in the service literature, there would be an additional amount of time in asking all of your peer group, generating consensus, seeing who would afford you their time. There's a lot of variables there that could change the outcome. So, as I said, if you are, imagine this scenario, and I've been in this scenario, and it's an ugly scenario, but they teach young Marines that to never, don't know, if you don't know the answer, say, I don't know. But your goal is to not be the guy who doesn't know. So you got a lot of stuff that you should probably know, like how to patrol. I was a motor team mechanic, but I knew how to patrol. I wasn't very good at land nat, but I understood it, and I'd done the modules and the training, and they used to send booklets to you and fill them out and send them back on terrorism and finances and these things. I learned a lot, but I've always been a constant learner because learners are earners, but learners are growers, people who can look at themselves and be satisfied with the results, even though they may not be where they want to be, which, believe me, been there and still there, but I've become really a lot more grateful for the steps I've made towards that person that I aspired to be. And that was through constant improvement on my character. I talk a little bit on another channel, or I'll have another channel, or maybe on this one I'll do a playlist. But we talk about manly strength, and a lot of people think that equates to some level of superiority. And real manly strength means that you're afforded the ability to care for others, and there should be some concern for the others around you. Now, alpha male behavior in nature dictates that if someone was to come into the group who posed a threat to the group, even if that group might think that you're a hard ass, you would still be tasked with the job of fighting that, whatever is the external threat. Biology, all these Harvard lectures, Robert Sapolsky, Dr. Sapolsky, the Harvard, I think Stanford, right? And then Harvard is Justice Sandel. He gives all the different talks on how justice is formed. I'm a learner. So this is only one small portion of the things I've decided to feed into my brain. But I don't think that it's fair to say that you know something just because you have some information. Information doesn't equate to knowledge per se. Consensus does. I mean, when I read a book, I try to read 5 or 4, or, more than one. And when I read something online, I go to several pages because they're all associated. And you're never going to get honest information without looking at both sides. So me looking at both sides is looking at the ownership of the business and competency and the billable hour, and then also looking at it from the technician standpoint of the amazing amount of money that we spend to do our job, the amount of time that we spend in our job, in our mind, outside of work and in work, the stress levels, 4th, 3rd highest levels of suicide. So these things are because it's a job where you're constantly in a state of problem solving, and in that state there's a state of stress in that job, and without somebody willing to absorb that stress, then shit wouldn't get done. Because someone, now as things progress, maybe there will be databases that most DIY will be able to pull from to be able to fix their problems at home, but a lot of people aren't confident. You'd be surprised how many people just don't want to fix it. So there's always going to be a place for a guy who wants to fix it, and they're not going to buy a robot and have it shipped to their house to you know what I mean. There's going to be a means for a guy to still make money, even if you traded somebody for beef. If you got his tractor back running, you got a game plan. I moved out to the country 10 years ago, so that's another channel altogether. But I believe in the merits of self-sufficiency, and having to call someone else, or if the internet's down and you can't get Chat GPT to tell you what's up, now you're lost. That's not competency, that's fraud. Let's know the difference. There is a difference. Now, being faking it to making it is one thing, as long as you do make it. But you can't fake it forever. I worked with a gentleman um, who, we'll call him Shrek, and this guy looked at ChatGPT to answer every single thing that came across his desk, and would step out to make a PowerPoint presentation with ChatGPT, come back in, and I'll tell you, his negotiation skills were great because he made the same money I did, um, and his competency was, if you spent too much time in hearing him, you realized he didn't know what an EGR valve was as an instructor until the day, 2 weeks until he taught the class. My point in saying this is that competency and negotiations are two different things. He negotiated well, superior to me. But that doesn't mean, negotiation often means that some people have to make up things about and be fraudulent. Well, wouldn't it be nice to walk into that negotiation table and say, hand me a circuit? Doesn't matter what that circuit is. Hand me a fault code, I'll walk you through it and I'll show you. I remember the first day I went to Peterbilt, they had this guy paired next to me, and I was working on a waste management truck. His name was Danik. He was a Russian guy, or Ukrainian. And he was watching me the whole time, and it was an injector that was shorted to ground. And this is in 2007 or so, right? And so, but it was the first day. And he saw that, so I had the fault code, I popped the hood, or cabbed it over, and I'm looking through the fault code, just walking through it, because I had been through Cummins. And it's one of the reasons why they did hire me. No, I apologize. I had been working on other things. But my point in saying this is I understood the theory. So to me, it wasn't like crazy talk to walk through a fault code. This is my point. So he watched me, and I walked through it, and I did the right job, changed out the injector that was shorted to ground. It was taking out the whole bank. Got everything up and running again. And he came up to me afterwards, and he goes, I was watching you. And I said, I saw you. And he goes, no, you did a really good job of walking through that problem. So systematic approach. I don't know if that maybe had been a job he had tried before. It doesn't matter to me. All that I know is you can hand me anything, and it doesn't matter if it's on this location on the engine. I can pretty well tell you what it's going to do. If it's on the exhaust on one side, or I can look at a component and understand what the modern theory of operation is enough to be able to troubleshoot through fault codes, and they're all there now. I want you guys to have that too, because if you can add that to your toolbox, you're not going to add it in 3 minutes of a 5-minute video. And if you're just watching to ruin the algorithm, you're an ass. But if you're my friend, let it run to the end. It helps the algorithm so much. And I appreciate very much the likes and comments, okay? To all of you who are doing it, thank you very much. But my point here in saying this is there's many things that run through my mind. This is a way that I can try to illustrate how to work through circuits so that we're not replacing multi-$1,000 parts. Because as soon as you replace a part and it doesn't fix it, you lose credibility. But if you can prove it was failed, you gain it back. How do you prove if part is failed? You test it. Well, then can't you prove and test it that it's bad before you replace it? Yes. Can you prove that to the customer before you replace it? Yes. Can you sidestep that whole big damn issue? Yeah. If you can test it and prove your results to the customer. They have video conference now. You can do all kinds of tablets and shit. Nobody can tell me that they can't save the failed parts and prove that each one is bad. All right, that's my 2 cents. Thank you guys.